The following podcast contains graphic content and spoilers from The Shield Seasons 4 and Seasons 5. With thanks to Nerdgeist. Hi, I'm Andy Luke and my guest has left.
You're listening to the Drew and Luke podcast. My name is Ian Lawther. We're talking about The Shield. I'm taking over.
And I'm Andy Luke. I usually host this show because it's my show. It's named after me.
Look, you have to understand that if I host, you will get more views. It's just the way it works.
And are you going to be in the? Are you going to be in the publicity poster? Because you're looking very much like a white Detective Kavanaugh tonight. A white Forrest Whitaker.
Oh dear God. Oh God. I don't come across that creepy, do you? I don't have any juicy fruit, sorry.
So I'm joined again with Ian Lawther, captain of the USS Caroline, and many other fine social entrepreneurship things. And we're going to look at Series 4 and Series 5 of The Shield. So Series 4 opens up with a new captain of the Barn, Monica Rawling, who puts a strike team together after they've split up. Also, she institutes a policy of seizing assets tied to drug crimes used to fund the DA, police equipment, and community programs. So, do you want to unpack that a bit? Glenn Close, Monica Rawling.
I couldn't believe it when I seen Glenn Close. I thought that was brilliant for The Shield, the caster.
Yeah.
Just fantastic actress.
I don't know her work. I've obviously heard the name.
Glenn Close, she would have in the live action Disney movie, 101 Dalmatians, things like that. She was Cruella de Vil, which is probably one of the things she's known for most.
Got sharp features.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
She's a very beautiful woman.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about this captain is, she's pretty good at working with Vic, and previous captains don't tend to handle Vic very well. She can handle Vic. She's heard all the rumors about Vic and his team and what they get up to, but I think coming in, what she realizes is, well, to her, they're rumors and Vic's team gets results, so let's get them back out there, and that's exactly what she does. She
brings out his best side. He's quite willing and compliant in working with her, which is not something we've really seen an awful lot of with Vic in the past.
No, that surprised me because he did try and play ball with her. Now, whether that's because, the team got disbanded and now they're back together, so Vic feels he has to be more careful, or he actually respects her, I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
I think a bit of both.
A bit of both. I mean, Rawling's attitude is very much that she's taking a pride in her strike team, and whereas we know of the relationship with Aceveda, that he sent a spy in, he was button heads with them, they had a very low opinion of him. I think her Vic has a sort of a certain magic about him, like a superhero, a larger than life character, and I think Monica Rawling has that as well. I mean, Glenn plays her with this, bringing this like breath of fresh air or gale into the barn. She's got boots experience. She's proactive. She's got a clear vision about what she wants to achieve. And I think it's almost like her magic overpowers Vic's.
I think she doesn't get intimidated by anyone. I think Vic can come across very intimidating to all the people he works with, but to her, she's not intimidated. She's the boss, and she'll put that team back together, but they'll do what she asks.
I think it matters a lot that she's a cop's cop.
She is.
So whereas Vic and perhaps even Shane can have some respect for her.
Yeah. Well, that's it. If Shane respects them, you must be doing something right.
Yeah.
Because I never got the impression that Shane respects anybody.
Yeah. Well, I think she is a little suspicious of him. And of course, his taint will pull Monica and the strike team off the rails eventually. But she's, we see her relationship with Lem, who's gone into working with the juvenile delinquents. And he's become like a youth and community officer. And those two seem to hit it off with a sort of mutual liking, respect.
Yeah, them is actually one of my favorite characters, just because out of all the people on that strike force, he comes across as a really nice guy, unlike some of the other members. And you can tell in season 4 with what you've just said that he gives a shit about people in the community. Whereas a lot of the other strike team members are in it for their own gain, the money from the drugs or whatever, the payday, if you like. But Lem does have a conscience.
Probably I'll get on to talking about how Walton Goggins takes the spotlight, like the second lead in this season. But I think the same's true of Kenny Johnson, who plays Lem. I think we've really got an arc in this season and the next where he steps up and shows what he can do as an actor, and the writers show what he can do as a character as well.
Absolutely, because he was kind of, for the first couple of seasons, he's there, but he's more of a background character. And now they're saying, right, it's your turn, which is great. It's great from a writing perspective because Vic and Shane get the majority of the stories, and they should, they're the sort of main characters of that strike force. But them, I thought his story starting here in season 4 is really interesting.
We can't leave Monica in the backseat without briefly talking about the civil forfeiture program. It's kind of a flawed policy. I mean, it looks great on paper. Mm-hmm. You rob from the bad rich to give to the good poor, but it's flawed. There's sort of absolutism in it. It leaves innocent victims in its wake, and it's kind of down to the discretion of which cop nabs you as to how it's implemented.
And also, I don't think it's good from a public relations point of view on the street. I don't think it makes the police any more sort of liked.
Yeah, and that's something Acevedo has a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
Poking his nose in again.
Getting me up there under the pretext of soliciting public support and then undermining me? Thanks for the crash course in sandbagging.
I came willing to be convinced. I wasn't.
Congratulations. You pushed half that crowd into Antoine Mitchell's hands.
Oh, that's a slippery slope. Using the boogeyman to ride roughshod over people's rights.
Don't you have enough to do in the city council?
But at the same time, she's new. She needs to make an impact because that position of hers, is pretty political. She might be a cop at heart, but she's took a position that will have the eyeballs on it. And she needs to come in and make a home run, or at least try to. So at least with this initiative, she's saying she's putting her marker down. We're going to make this work. I'm going to make changes. So from that point of view, I think it worked in as much as it made the police officers feel like, right, we can do something now. We can hurt these criminals. We can take their ill-gotten gains, and we can now use that.
Yeah, and there's a very immediate and effective power in that easily trumps bashing some heads in.
Absolutely.
So also at the beginning of the season, Claudette and Dutch are shut out of meaningful cases by the DA's office. So Dutch makes a backroom deal to save both their careers. So yeah, this pulls out a lot of what is going on in Dutch and Wim's relationship, always looking out, trying to figure out how to support her. But as it turns out, this is Dutch's Vic move.
It is.
A guy with 3 cannabis plants as a drug lord to get them back on cases and out of the shit pile.
Yeah, that's interesting because you never would have thought Dutch would have had any part of Vic in him. But when he's pushed into his corner, and especially his partner, he cares about his partner. And because he feels like they've been victimized, he's willing to do whatever it takes to get them back because he really feels that they're the best 2 detectives and they're the detectives that close the cases.
He really does, and he's right.
He is right. Yes, Dutch has quite an ego, but he usually backs that up with the cases he closes. It was interesting seeing him making a backroom deal because, again, that's what you thought Vic would do, or the strike team. You didn't think it would, because when Dutch is introduced in season 1, he's like this. He comes across almost like the straight cop. Well, again, when he's backed into a corner, yeah, he showed he'll come out fighting. Maybe in a slightly different way in Vic. I mean, obviously Vic is very intimidating when he wants to be. Dutch not so much, but Dutch is a smart man, you know.
That arc's also an interesting story of politics in law enforcement. So
Yes.
I ask the question, who is criminalized? Whoever the boss of the law says, that's who the criminal is. And in this case, it's a DA, and we almost see the wrong witness get sold to prison. It's a courtside equivalent of shots being fired in the street, and an aspect of which is like a further reprisal on whims for opening these old cases. She has been making sure that the wrong people haven't been arrested, and now this has come back on her, and that's his facility of that. Yeah, we can understand why he did what he did and root for it a bit.
It's, the whole Shield shows you why the on the ground officers have a hard time getting stuff done, because it's just nothing but politics. And in that respect, I understand in some ways why Vic does what he does, why he's in it for himself, because there's so much shit they have to deal with. It's very hard just to concentrate on the job and get stuff done. I think Vic is saying, we're going out there, we're putting our lives on the line, but it's nothing but politics when we get back. So hell, we'll go out for ourselves. And that's what I love about the show.
Yeah.
It shows the politics of it, and it's not it's not nice. It's an eat or be eaten world, and these characters are fighting for their jobs constantly, especially the person who's in charge. Obviously, Monica's now in charge, but they're fighting for their lives. They need to get results, and they need to get results yesterday. I wouldn't want to work in the Shield or the barn. No. Let me tell you, that would be pressure.
I'm sure you found as satisfying as I did when that gale of fresh air, Monica Rawling, came in and started doing her own digging and playing her own political game with regards to that. And really, after her and Claudette butting heads initially, she sticks her neck out to cut the DA down to size.
Yep. I mean, and that surprised me that those two did clash, because I in my head I sort of thought those two would be allies.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted that, but it is a civil forfeiture policy, and I think she is smart enough to see through to that. Claudette strikes me very much as somebody who knows the people, who goes out there and talks to them and grows up amongst them in a way that later we see that with Julian, and later we see it with Tina to some extent. Yeah. So by going in and advocating for them, later Claudette and Dutch can lead up on the Caroline Scooby killings, and they can navigate issues with Steve Billings, who we're going to have to talk about later on, because that's a whole interesting thing. Okay, respected drug lord Antoine Mitchell blackmails Shane Vendrell. Afraid of being framed for the murder of Angie, a young girl, Shane becomes Antoine's enforcer until he is ordered to kill Vic. There's quite a lot to unpack in that one, I think. Let's start, can we, with Anthony Anderson, Antoine Mitchell. He's a big guy. He's a large figure.
He's a large figure. He's intimidating. He's basically the main guy on the street. That even the strike force, I don't know if respect's the right word, but he's just not another criminal on the street that they can just push aside.
He's definitely right up there in the Shield rogues gallery.
Yeah.
There's a few things going on with Antoine. what I'm thinking of is the many faces of Antoine Mitchell. So we're first introduced to him as this sort of level-headed and reasonable motivational speaker, one of these ex-original gangsters who's done his time, he's gone good, and he's rehabilitated. He's taken the spotlight as a community leader, building bridges. He gets into political debate with Acevedo in a church over this social experiment of forfeiture. And initially, we're seeing quite Vic and Rawling quite angry with both of them. And it kind of raises questions if we should trust ex-violent criminals in community celebrity roles. Of, you know, on one side, their advocacy and diplomacy at keeping old troublemakers in line and showing them a new way of doing things is not to be underestimated. It's very important stuff, but it is a return to the power base and they're investing in that power base to do what they do, and that has its own dangers. And in Antoine's case, it looks for a time that he's actually genuine about what he's trying to do, and that Vic and Rawling are just sort of demonizing him. They're trying to push him constantly, and
it's an easy sell for the community, because the strike force and the police do not have a great relationship with the community. So even though Anton is this big bad dude, or was this big bad dude, because he's speaking out against the police and he's delivering a message that the community really relates to, people flock to him.
And he expresses some very real concerns about police harassment.
We're here just enjoying a cookout.
Bullshit. It's a gang council. I'm sure that hanging with known bangers violates your parole.
Probation ended 4 months ago. I ain't the system's slave no more.
Well, I hear you haven't exactly retired.
Dealing again, Antoine?
Just trying to keep these kids from making my mistakes.
Well, lesson number 1, never piss off the PD. I'm gonna take a little ride.
Why'd I do that?
Because you ain't fighting the power no more.
Some of my boys will have to escort. This is the city that plants evidence on innocent brothers. Shoots us in the back, says we were resisting. Takes us to their police house and sticks a plunger in our ass.
Actually, that one was New York.
It's all white America, lady.
And that's quite realistic.
It is, and that's why, in the back of your mind, he's a bad guy in the series, right? You've got that in the back of your mind. But at the same time, when you hear him speak, if you just heard someone speak like that and you didn't know them, you would probably buy into it. Yeah. Just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean his message isn't, somewhat accurate.
Regardless of where we are in the story, I think he plays a very thoughtful figure most of the time. And I think we're placed initially quite with his anti-seizure perspective, that opens that up. So I think we get a number of different faces of Antoine during the season, and some of it is just, it's writer's bluff, really. Although we have Vic bangs down his door at 3 a.m. over some BS.
Again, he's a character that, can get under Vic's skin a wee bit, which is not easy to do. Whether he actually really does give a shit about the community or not, or is he just, going through the season, or is he just using the community to establish his empire again, if you like?
He's a very Machiavellian character, very manipulative player.
Yeah. The problem is he can talk to people and people buy into what he's saying. That's powerful. And that's what makes him so dangerous.
I think Anthony Anderson, who plays him, is just... I don't know, it's very subtle performance in his display of strength. He's licking of his lips. There's a sort of a very Chiklis-like intensity to him. Yeah. Spitting, that physicality, all jaw, pretty much.
All jaw. I mean, he can sit, he could sit, and there's times he's been sitting in a room with Vic and he's not saying anything, and Vic is talking, and you just look at his face And even though he's not saying anything, he's actually saying a lot. You know, just with his face.
Yeah, he's a stone
It's-
man.
Yeah, a fantastic performance. Chilling at times.
Well, let's step to the side and talk about Walton Goggins, who I think just series here. Shane is boss. He likes to be the dom. He marks his territory wherever he can. He's got that big, wide open, all teeth smile.
Yeah, the problem with Shane is he's not as smart as he thinks he is.
He's not, no, sad.
You know, he thinks he's the man, but as you see in this series, he gets his ass in trouble again.
Shane has ended up in Vice, and he's got Army Renta is his own little Shane. And
Shane, I like it.
He's making inroads with Antoine and others, much like Vic used to do in season 1 with Rondell Robinson and Kern Little, and training Army how to do it. He's going to be the new landlord, the new drug dealer, or
he thinks. You see, Shane thinks he can be Vic. You know, his ego's got there. He says, "You know what? I can do this better than Vic." Well, we'll see.
And it's very much a sense of like Vic and I were on a good thing back then. If he wants to let it go, that's on him, but I'm going to do it this way. He's always saying stuff without making big proclamations, without thinking through what he means first. He doesn't have Vic's luck, because Vic can keep those plates spinning, but Shane's luck is always running out. So then we get into Antoine versus Shane, and that comes where we really do see the other side of Antoine.
Yep.
With the murder of the young girl Angie, who Lem was looking after, and it's one of those scenes, isn't it? Fucking goosebumps, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it really is. Yeah. We did. Did that scene leave a mark on you?
Yeah, Shane, he thinks he's the man. Basically goes after Anton Mitchell, and, Shane's a cocky wee shite, let's be honest. And Anton just totally turns the tables on him.
I had a talk with her moms. Amazing what a bitch will give up for a little rush. Or in this case, a big rush.
Jesus, you killed her mother.
This is the little hoe that gave up my block.
She's just a kid.
I know. And you two should be ashamed of yourselves.
Shane and his big mouth and his not thinking things through lands him in this situation. If that was Vic, I don't think that would have happened. So yeah, Shane's in a world of trouble.
When Shane speaks, he can be quite inspirational, and enthusiastic and encouraging. And he's also yippee-ki-yay to his friend Army. Mm-hmm. And of course, just carries him deeper down this hole, this gung-ho attitude. Yeah, I think it probably if he just admitted to himself and Army how bad things were getting, he might have done something about them a lot sooner.
Yeah.
There's a scene I really like. I want to talk about actually. So Angie has gone missing, and out the back of the police station, Shane is confronted by Lem in a "Where's Angie" moment.
What's up, son of a bitch? What did you do? She was 14! Well, that's your problem, man! You bring Angie to Antoine Mitchell yourself, huh? Hand her over with a goddamn bow, or just tell him where to find her? No. No? Where is she then? Back off! Just back off! I got it, okay? I got it. Where is she then, Shane? Where's Angie? What are you asking me for, man? What, you telling me you're not in bed with Antoine Mitchell? What? You told him Angie gave up that cul-de-sac bus. No, man, I would never do that. What happened to her, Shane? What happened to her then? I don't know. Dude, she was 14. She just wanted to get her mom clean. Would you tell me what you did? Nothing. Nothing. Look, you know that I would never hurt a kid. I got one of my own now, man. Yeah. I know you're lying.
And Kenny Johnson is vibrating like a machine gun. And
Yeah.
Goggins he's slipping out of his range like a scared snake. There's accusations coming, and we see Vendrell's defensiveness just collapse in on itself. And I mean, I wish this was a vidcast so we could run a piece of what Walton Goggins is doing with his face here, but it's like everything is just collapsing.
Yeah, the emotion in that scene. I know exactly the scene you're talking about. The actor just plays that perfectly.
You can see his limbs laying into him. Goggins just gives us this moment of clarity in Shane, where he can see what he has.
Exactly.
Brought.
And the other thing is, this is the first time you've seen them really get bent out of shape. But for him to have a go at somebody on his own team, just like I was going, well done, that man. Someone needs to go through Shane. I just got a sense that Shane is doing all this to prove something to Vic.
Yeah, there's daddy.
And but the scene is perfect because again, it's all in the face. It's all in the emotion. And you see a light bulb goes off in Shane's head. Call it a coming to Jesus moment or whatever you want to call it, but it's there.
And because this is all monitored on these hidden cams in Shane's car, the rest of the strike team are all plotting against him. Just at the moment when Shane comes back and he's crying his eyes out and he's bawling, help me, can you help me? This has happened, I love when Walton Goggins cries.
He's great, yeah.
Amazing. Breaks me. Sorry, Donald Glover, but Walton Goggins has it.
Yeah. And, and I think too, there's a certain I know this is terrible, but there's a certain satisfaction seeing him break down and cry. Because there's times in series you just want to punch him in the face.
We'll be coming back to Shane's tears quite a bit in season 7, I imagine. We're just gonna throw open some other threads because we're way over time so far. Also in season 4, Vic mostly keeps his nose clean. Aceveda's into domination rape play with a call girl. He makes a deal with Antoine to kill his rapist and catch a cop killer. Julian stitches up a working white man for acid seizure. Danny gets shot. Monica has opened an IAD investigation. Dutch Claudette and Monica look into a shady foster home. Dutch boy has seen Corinne. Dutch catches a coffee bandit and a man angry about cigarettes and packs. He's also got a hungry singing voice, and he beats down both Vic and Billings.
Where do you start with that?
Unpack. Is there anything you want to just you want to jump on out of that list?
Well, let's get the awkward bit out of the way. Aceveda.
Yeah.
This all stems from what happened to him. Was it the previous season, or was it early this season? I can't remember.
At least season 2 or 3.
3, yeah. His way of dealing, I suppose the way to just say it to the viewer is, he was sexually abused, made to do things at gunpoint that were really fucked up, and that has really screwed him up. And it would probably screw anybody up, but we see that this leads into this dominating. He pays hookers basically to dominate them and rough them up, basically.
He kind of does settle on the one sort of escort girl.
Yes.
Who is kind of, I forget the actress's name, but she's very attuned to what's going on. She doesn't know the specifics, but she knows there's
something.
There's abuse there. And it kind of occurred to me, it's a bit like what we've seen earlier with Dutch and the cat. That Dutch wants to find out what is going on in this murderer's head. And Aceveda wants to find out what was going on in this rapist's head. And I think there's also a need to feel after that sort of condition that there may be some numbness or maybe the opposite, maybe sort of a need to feel
in control, maybe, or
control, definitely, and emotions that are stronger than that go with that control, like a palate cleanser, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, the scenes with the call girl are quite hard to watch. The Shield doesn't shy away from those things, and this is really the story of Aceveda throughout this season. He needs to get this rapist. He just needs that for closure. I think maybe is that fair?
Yeah.
So he goes to Antoine Mitchell. If you notice in this season, Antoine Mitchell is connected to most of the key players in the cast in some way at some point in the season. He's the one constant in this season for most characters. That was quite a sort of coming sort of together for Aceveda, and he needed this for closure, and again it was pretty hard to watch at times.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about Antoine. He's certainly a character that feels tied into the fabric of the show. I think he's maybe in 2 episodes of season 5 and one of
He's
season
certainly in a couple.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's just say his legacy certainly never goes away from the series, And then you've got poor Julian. Oh man.
Oh yes, he's a conflicted boy. Ditches up, stops a white middle class man on the freeway for
oh god, I can't remember.
It was pretty minor, whatever.
It was pretty minor, and yeah, Julian. I think the one thing that the Shield seems to do is whatever's going on in people's personal lives really impacts their professional job, and Julian is no exception to this. Julian, comes across as a decent guy, but my God, he was on the tipping edge. He's on the tipping edge.
This season does have 2 of my favorite Dutch moments, which is the "Hungry Like a Wolf," where he's singing that in the car, and the beatdown with Billings.
Maybe I ought to set an example, starting with you. Look, you don't want to get into this. It's not so funny now, huh? What are you going to do? Turn off the hose and hide behind your car? Hey, check it out, Billings and Dutch. Here we go. Dutch boy. Wow. Oh, I got money on the geek. That's even money, brother. Get him around, baby. Not the hair. Come on. Let's pull the hair. No, pull in your hair. Come on, Dutch. Yeah, brother.
Where Vic tries to intervene and Dutch hits him a punch in his nose.
Yeah, which seeing Dutch hit Vic was sort of like, go on, Dutch,
It's no simple sort of fracas either. I mean, even after they've been separated, Dutch is still going. He might not be able to do much with his body, but his mouth and his brain are laying through the lot of them.
Yeah. In a strange way, I think Vic actually respects Dutch a bit more maybe after that, in a strange way. Obviously, Vic doesn't like getting punched in the face, let's be honest. But at the same way, I don't think he ever really thought Dutch would have that in him. To that degree, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know that Vic respects him because of that. I think it would just be another. I mean, Vic understands what strength is and brutality, at least his own. He likes to have a domination on that. He doesn't like to be challenged. Yeah. I think he has respected Dutch's brain in moments where he's come through where there've been cases. I think it was probably a surprise to Vic more than anything else.
Could have been. Certainly a surprise to me.
The last thing he saw coming. And Steve Billings definitely did have it coming.
Oh,
he's a massive knob.
He is. Completely.
He's like, we see him a lot in this season as like that. There's like the school bully. There's the kid in the background, the smaller kid laughing at all his jokes. And that's who Billings is.
Yeah. Remind me again, how did Danny get shot?
I can't remember. I know she gets shot in the arm or the shoulder.
Yeah, it puts her on sort of a desk job for a while, doesn't it?
Is Julian with her?
I'm trying to think of season 4 in terms of what was Danny's story. Was there more than just she gets shot?
Yeah, Danny, I think, is one of the characters who really don't really have much to do from this point onwards. We see Julian falls into the same category.
This is always the problem with, when we're looking down our notes here and we've got, other threads. There was so much there. The Shield packs in so much content that I'm looking at it here and I'm trying to get it straight in my head. The sequence of events in my head. But no, I think that's pretty much the big thing is, Shane tries to go out on his own. And then, by the end of things, he comes back and rekindles with the team by the end of the season. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it does take the full season for the strike team to get properly back together again.
Yeah.
For me, Glenn Close was a big takeaway. I wanted Glenn Close to be a regular.
Yeah.
Just fell in love with her.
Absolutely. She was great. A great, strong character. She was a captain's captain, if that makes sense. She was for the workforce. She had to play the political game, but she wasn't really political. And that's what I loved about her, because obviously Aceveda, he wanted to move on to greater and bigger things. He was using the barn as a stepping stone to launch his political career. Whereas Monica really just wanted to straighten out the barn and make a difference in the community. So yeah, she was definitely, I think for me, her and Anton Mitchell in this season were my two takeaways. And then again, Shane, Shane was great.
Shane, yep. He has no script.
Yeah. And it was nice to see them get involved a wee bit more. So all in all, very solid season, I thought.
Absolutely. 5 stars.
What happens to Glenn Close in season 5? She's there at the start, isn't she?
No, she's just retired.
Right, okay, right.
Retires at the end of season 4, I think.
Wow.
She's pushed into retirement.
That's a real shame.
Her house in the hood.
But we get Forrest Whitaker, sorry. And this is a hell of a season.
What's up? Jon Kavanaugh, IAD. I need you to come with us.
I love this character. Yeah. Bloody creepy, but still I love him.
So the Shield season 5 begins with Internal Affairs Division theatrical Jon Kavanaugh, played by Forrest Whitaker, investigating Lemansky over missing drugs. However, Kavanaugh's real mission is to turn Lem and find evidence from the strike team. Vic brings lawyer Becca Doyle aboard to guard their interests. Kavanaugh, pure jazz.
Pure jazz. And the strange thing with it is, in the previous season, you had Anton Mitchell, who was the protagonist. He was a bad guy. But, in this season, Kavanaugh sort of becomes that. He's internal affairs. And technically they're the good guys. But for our point of view, he's going after the team. So, he sort of becomes Vic's enemy, for this season.
You might have saw on my notes in green pen, are we rooting for Kavanaugh yet? There was a lot of
yes, very much.
A lot of people didn't want Kavanaugh to succeed.
Yeah, but there is times, that the great thing about the performance is you don't want them to succeed, because that's what the Shield is. You're actually Vic's technically a bad guy. He really is, but you're almost cheering for the bad guys. And that's what the Shield does brilliantly. Kavanaugh, there's times you feel sorry for him, but he goes too far in what he's willing to do to get Vic, and he doesn't care who he hurts in the process.
He's quite merciless. I mean, when he comes in, and I think that might be the first scene of the series, he meets Lem, and he tells Lem how it's going to be, in no uncertain terms. He's unpredictable. He jerks Corinne about. He doesn't.
That's where I lost sort of any respect for him, was how he dealt with Corinne. Like, okay, she's married to Vic, but he goes to the school where Vic's kids are, and pretends he's a father with autistic kids as well, to get to know her, I think. And I thought that was low. I thought that was,
that probably played into why I actually didn't like not just Kavanaugh, I think, but Forrest Whitaker until about 7 episodes in.
Right.
He feels alien to the Shield. He's like a character from another show entirely. And I made a wee note about this, about how I feel about this, because in writing, most characters contain some taint or DNA of the story's plot in their dialogue. And you can go back and you can rewatch it and you can see why they're in a certain way. But Kavanaugh seems completely innocent of this. It makes him an anachronism, an anomaly, which is really weird considering how fundamentally important he is to the plot. It is that whole sort of unpredictability of it. He's playing his own tune.
We've got Lemansky. He lifted a brick of tar off the El Salvadorans. We've been waiting for it to spin into something more.
Which means you've got nothing on Mackey.
His day job's keeping him busy. He hasn't had the freedom to navigate much game. But we got a CI next to him, and when he jumps 30, we'll know. Until then, I was hoping that you might be able to help us out.
You've got my letter. And I've got nothing else to add. Mackey's your problem now, not mine.
No, perception is your problem. I'm going after Mackey and his team. Now, you can get on board and be proactive, or you can sit back and spectate. Just like you did when he was running dirty on your watch.
Hey, I did everything I could to ring him in. Don't sit there and threaten me with bad PR.
You're right. How's that a land? Hey, I'm sorry. Please, come on. Sit down. Mackey's jacket is like a 20-page cautionary tale. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. I just want to get him off the street before he does any more damage. That's it.
Yeah, the thing that interests me from the start was what I couldn't work out was, in shows, internal affairs are set up as the bad guys, really, to stopping cops doing, their jobs and causing trouble. I can understand internal affairs investigating them. That, in a lot of ways, that makes sense. What I couldn't understand, he seemed to have a real grudge. It wasn't just that he was doing his job. There seemed to be something more. And when he came in so strong and he started going, after Vic's girl and, the thing at the school and, the juicy fruit.
Yeah, it is established. It is established later that he takes his job pretty seriously when we're talking about his interactions with his wife. But then we can look at that through the hindsight, the mirror of hindsight as well, knowing what he knew then. I mean, when he comes in, he doesn't know about Terry's death. That's
right. That's right. Yeah, you're right.
That to happen. I've made a note here. Do you remember in Serenity, Chiwetel Ejiofor's agent is operative, and Nathan Fillion's talking about him with Ron Glass, and Ron Glass's Shepherd book says they'll sidle up to you and smile, hit you where you're weak. There's very much that sort of essence to Whitaker's performance here. He's all smiles. He's all going to be your friend. It's okay.
He's doing this in your best interest.
Yeah.
What I like is,
and he believes it. He's a believer.
He's a believer.
a fishing hook on his birthday.
Mhm. That's right. The other thing, we always talk about, and it's a bit of a meme, is he offers people a piece of gum, juicy fruit, and he offers them, and he says, "It's a new pack. Take a piece." And that's all psychological. If the person takes the piece, that's an indicator that he can convince them to do things. If they don't take the piece of gum, he knows he might have his work cut out for him. I thought that was interesting. It's almost like he's testing the person in a strange way. But yeah, he takes his job so seriously. And what you find out is, as the show goes on, he starts to lose control. He's a loose cannon.
Yeah.
And I think he's used to getting results and getting results fast, maybe. But in this case, it's been a lot harder for him than I think he probably thought it would be,
He does have his own sort of sense of control. I mean, there's a couple of stages to his operation. Later, it's setting up at the barn, but initially, it's Lem's house is his base, and it's where he'll be doing things. So Kenny Johnson is this portrayal of this happy boy spiraling into this sort of lost boy. He's sick. He's sweating. He swears blind that Vic didn't kill Terry because the idea is unthinkable to him. And there's this great scene where Aceveda and Kavanaugh are rounding on Lem, and he's like a man drowning, but he's defiant that Vic didn't do this, and Kavanaugh's smiling.
Terry didn't have a grudge against Vic going in, but it only took him 2 weeks to find out that Vic was a dirty cop. I have his original notes detailing his suspicions.
He was your teammate. He was a threat, so he had to die.
No! Never!
You didn't know, did you? Vic never told you. All this time, I thought the four of you were in it together, but you really didn't know.
It's changed everything. You're saying you didn't know about it until right now. It was the other guy.
I didn't say that.
But you didn't know. I mean, I respect a guy being loyal, but now you're protecting a guy for something that you don't have any stake in. Something that you told me the death penalty was too good for.
This is a damn witch hunt right now.
You cannot be a cop and be a part of it with him. You gotta choose.
Vic did not kill Terry.
He says Vic is your friend, which is also the worst thing he can say to us. But it's also a tactic to lure Lem into a decision. It's like Kavanaugh is the person that's most invested in this story. He's combating the viewer for the role of important observer.
Exactly. And that's what, you have to give the writers credit. This character, Kavanaugh, has so many nuances and so many layers. It's a character that they really thought about. He wasn't just thrown in there to be an obstacle for the strike force. He's a much different threat than the strike force has faced in some ways before. Especially, not just to these internal affairs, but, he eats, sleeps, and drinks this case.
Yeah.
He doesn't turn off. And in the end, that's probably one of the reasons for his downfall. He just doesn't take a breath.
Yeah, well, another is that him and Vic are like the bloodhounds circling each other, and one shall stand, one shall fall. Vic is as stubborn as ever. When Lem asks him about what happened with Terry, Vic can't just say, look, Terry was part of our team. He's holding on to this sort of justification while he's compartmentalizing it.
Yeah.
I think Lem sees right past it, or at least comes to see right past it. But also Kavanaugh, he tells us so much about everybody around him. Initially, the strike team, And Ronnie has been keeping his nose clean. Mara and Shane are flashing the cash because goddamn Mara. Let us count the ways we hate her.
Yeah, I mean, Shane, Shane's just an idiot when it comes to her.
Yeah.
Definitely
so. And for all we disliked the antagonism against Corinne, he turns up that bag of 65k through just wearing her down.
Yeah. And the worst thing about it too is it makes Corinne doubt Vic. She's obviously they're separated, but I think she always felt they were separated because of the job. It wasn't that Vic was this terrible father or, because Vic cares for his kids. I think Corinne starts to doubt Vic and goes, what is he involved in? And in turn, that puts so much pressure on Vic. Because Vic's sort of rule of thumb is, you can come after me, but leave my family out of things, I'd
argue by the same token that Vic doesn't really, I think what ramps up their separation is she catches him having an affair. But
yes, I forgot about that.
That's true. His blinders on with how smart Corinne is. He figures he's pulled the wool over her eyes long enough that she'll keep out of his business and just think that he is always trying to do right by her. But Corinne is
smart.
Quite slowly sort of getting around her. She has mental blocks, but she's going to get there.
She's going to, and obviously you've got Kavanaugh poking at those blocks, and the thing about it is Kavanaugh is so intense that she's thinking to herself, what has Vic done for this man to go out of his way, and Kavanaugh slowly picks away at her, because at first it's like, yeah, he's a bastard for pretending to be something he's not, a father with autistic kids, but he leaves sort of little breadcrumbs and little things that Corinne can't explain in her head. But in doing that, Kavanaugh, turns Vic into even more of a threat, I think. And it becomes a case of one-upmanship over them.
Yep.
Through the series.
So let's go, meanwhile, at the barn, because that's
where... Oh, yeah, there's a barn.
Things are going to go down in the Vic Kavanaugh stakes at the barn.
Yeah.
But Aceveda has moved on, and Annette Steve Billings is put in charge.
Oh, man, this made me laugh, man. This was great. Him trying to lead the troops. Do you remember his first speech? He gets them all together, and he's got his cards he's got, and he's kind of reading off these cards, and they're just standing there going, how he got put, I don't know how he got put in charge. I can't remember the circumstances of it. I assume it was because they felt he was someone that could be controlled. Was that it? But it was only temporary, of course, but...
Well, much later in the season, Claudette calls him
an interim jellyfish that won't rock the boat. Out to lunch, passing the buck, or leaving every day at 4:00.
Yeah.
Which I think sums him up. I mean, he coins a phrase at some point during the series, the Billings, which is doing the least amount of effort possible in the job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's David Marciano is the actor, and it's a very playful performance he gives. It's quite understated and quite nuanced, actually. I think he pretty much just lets the script do the work for him.
Yeah, and what I like about the character is it's not comic relief per se, but in the world of the Shield, it's a lighter tone to the rest of what's going on, and sometimes that's a welcome break. Just so that things calm down a wee bit before we get back to what's going on. I like the character,
Yeah, he's great fun, and he's as I've come to find in later seasons, he's not just this 2D laugh generator.
No,
but for now, I mean, he's all set to move into the captain's office with his HD 4K television, furnishings. which no sooner is he in than Kavanaugh moves in and
I love that.
He's got his vending machine thing, which becomes a point of politics between him and Dutch.
That's right.
Dutch finds out that Dave is making money off these machines. And I think the only time we really see him ramp up is Vic has some raid on some drug dealers, which Kavanaugh thinks he's going to use to arrest Vic to catch him dirty. And actually, he's cleared it all with Billings. It's an undercover sting. And because if there's one cop Billings is happy enough to throw his weight behind, if it came to that, it would be Vic.
Absolutely. I love the scene where, Kavanaugh's up in the office, he's moved in, and then Vic and the team come in, and Vic's down on the ground and he's up there looking over at him, and the look they give each other just in passing, fantastic. Again, just done with emotion on faces. Vic knows that, and he does something that I thought was really smart. He takes away the door to the strike teams.
Yeah.
That was great, because you could tell that Vic knew, okay, the sharks are closing in.
Yeah, I really like that sort of what we spoken last time about the barn and the way it's laid out and how that has a tremendous effect. And here we see Kavanaugh screw with that.
Yeah.
It changes the whole atmosphere of the main set.
It really does. And in some ways, the tension in the barn now is counterproductive for the rest of the team, because Cavanaugh's there, things are going on, and the detectives are thinking, what's going on here? They've got someone looking over their shoulders. They don't exactly know why or what's going on, but then Kavanaugh starts calling the strike force up to talk to them, and you get an episode that's basically each member going up, having this conversation, and again, the one with Shane is hilarious.
You were on your own for a while last year. Vice, what made you come back to the strike team? I would think that you would want to make a name for yourself, flying solo.
Like you dribbling shit all over us to make a name for yourself?
Yeah. I was going to leave this to later, but It does bring out why we have it out there. I mean, Shane is like, I don't want no representation because Shane's the alpha. He's got that. Ron has his allegiance and his coolness. But Lem has his all his fears coming out. But I think, being back in the barn and being surrounded by the strike team, he takes a sense of comfort in that sort of.
Just for context, Vic wants the strike force to adopt a lawyer, someone to watch their backs. This causes dissension within the strike team because Shane and Ronnie don't think it's a good idea to let an outsider in. They're worried, but again, as you said, Lem probably needs her. It's fair to say at this point.
I get the sense Lem was supposed to have been an orphan.
Right. Interesting.
It seems to sort of recur throughout his character. Maybe he was raised in a home or something like that. And rather than Shane, who has daddy issues regarding Vic, or they both sort of want to be brothers, and Lem is very independent. He certainly feels hurt, but I think he doesn't have that reliance that Shane and even Vic have on one another.
Very much so. But I think Kavanagh sees Lem as the weak link. If there's a way to the strike team, it's through him. The lawyer's kind of interesting because, the lawyer seems to have this relationship with Vic. Obviously, she doesn't know everything, but Vic probably has to tell her more than he's comfortable with, or else she can't protect him. So Vic slowly starts to tell her bits and pieces, just enough is necessary, but you start to see that Vic, he knows that they're in trouble, and this is where Vic needs help. You know, it gets to the point where he has to start telling her things. Not the whole truth, because the whole truth, you know, would sink him. But enough that the lawyer certainly knows that Vic isn't a straight arrow. And I think that's
part of that conversation around the sins of the strike team.
Yes. I love that angle because, again, it's a great way in story to show Vic knows he's in trouble.
When were you going to tell me about the $65,000?
I wasn't.
First, you're being persecuted. Then you're a prime suspect in a cop killing. And now you're just a cop on the take?
Sometimes things crossed our path. Drugs, money. Sometimes we took a little to use later. To help with intel on the street.
Some just ended up in your pocket.
I gave it to my ex, actually. Looks like Kavanaugh got to her.
Vic is usually quite good. You know, we've seen Vic get into tight calls before, but he always finds a way out. But within the strike team, whereas now it's like we need to trust somebody. And in doing so, again, does cause dissension within the strike team. Because they're shit scared of trusting an outsider. Because they know that they're not, you know, because they know they have done things. Like, okay, them doesn't know about Terry and stuff like that, but, you know, they're all guilty of something.
Laura Harring is the actress that plays lawyer Becca Doyle. Laura Harring. And maybe it's just living in the shadow of Antoine Mitchell and Forrest Whitaker, but she didn't really seem to pop for me.
Right.
I thought it was a very interesting story. In fact, probably she suffered because there is so much going on in this season. It is a real heavy lifter.
Yeah, very much so.
What the hell are you doing?
What?
You took your gun into the cage? Someone could have grabbed your weapon. Do you see all these people around you, huh? Look at me. You trying to kill one of them, or you trying to kill one of us?
Hopefully one of you.
Julian becomes training officer for rookie Tina Hanlon, another new actress played by Paula Garces. And Tina doesn't take her job as seriously as Julian would like her to. Her good looks turn heads, particularly where Dutch and acting Captain Billings are concerned.
Yes. This is a rookie who, you know, you could see from day one she is a rookie, and whether she should be out in the field, as it were, or out on the streets is debatable. Once she gets out in the big bad streets, she doesn't always handle herself very well.
I was given off last time about Julian and how green he is. You see in my notes here, I have Tina is greener.
Yeah, totally. And again, Dutch likes her, and Dutch thinks, you know, she should be given a fair shake. But I mean, the amount of mistakes she does is, I mean, I think she walks over evidence at some point in a crime scene.
Yeah, that's her first appearance.
Doesn't she hold up a guy who's undercover?
Yeah.
And she should have known that the guy was undercover because of, was it something he was wearing, or for some sort of code word he gives her?
Badge, or he told her he was a police officer?
Well, it's more than that. There was like, they said for undercover agents, they have like a code phrase or something so that they can identify themselves to cops, so cops know to leave them alone. And that changes like every day or something. Tina, unfortunately, didn't remember the code or whatever it was and holds them up and puts the whole investigation in pretty major jeopardy.
So because of this stuff, I wrote down, what is she doing there in the first place?
Yeah, and she
who am I to judge, never having been there?
Oh yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like, obviously you have to remember she's a rookie, but even for a rookie, she doesn't seem ready. Now, I honestly don't know what sort of training they go through, but she just doesn't seem clued in enough.
Must have. I mean, what was she thinking? I don't mean that in a rhetorical sense. Like, I mean, did she perhaps want to better herself, work with communities, open up a dialogue? She saw something in policing. Was it just a job to pay the bills? Like you might take a job in a shop?
I mean, I have to think that it couldn't just be to pay the bills, because there must be easier jobs. Because let's face it, like cops don't get paid much, especially rookies. I don't know in this season if that's really explored, or if it is, I can't put my finger on it.
Will we get some stuff maybe next season about her? Yeah, next season about her moving into the cops' promotional posters, using her or her good looks being used to sell the idea of jobs in the police. Maybe she saw a few posters with some hunks like Kevin Hyatt on them, enticing her to join the police, or maybe Dutch Wagenbach, who I'm sure looks good in gym gear. Mentor versus captor, Dutch Wagenbach. Is he a training mentor, or is he dating her? There's a tendency to put those of Dutch's personality types into that box that says advancing on trying to get sex, and I think he wouldn't turn it down.
I don't think that was intention. Certainly not at first. I don't think he thinks that way.
I think he's entitled to a legitimacy in his gaze. He is a guy who cares for better policing. It's his long-term aim. And if it's mirrored in Tina at all, then fine, leave the kids alone.
Absolutely. And I think also, I think he sees that she's a young woman still in a man-dominated place. Let's be honest. There's not a lot of women at the barn, really. I think he sees that she's struggling, but he also sees that she's also quite intimidated and she's generally worried about her job. And I think he wants to help her. Does he have feelings for her? I would say he does. I think if the first was he just wanted to help her, because nobody else was really willing to give her a chance. I mean, Julian, I understand Julian from the point of he has to be hard on her because the streets can get her killed. I get that. But at the same time, Julian
is over 6 feet.
Julian's not the most experienced officer in the world either. I mean, I know it's 5 years since we met him, but I don't think Julian takes her under his wing.
From what I understand, there's some crunch time going on in the Shield, and that the 7 seasons take place over something like 3 years.
Oh, is that it? Right. Okay.
So,
well, then he's even less experienced than I thought.
But yeah, definitely.
Julian makes his mind up pretty quickly about her. I think Claudette does as well, to a degree. Well, we'll probably come back to Claudette later. Do we talk about the pictures yet? Was that this season?
So yeah, I was about to ask, is so Steve Billings happens to have a spy cam up on his supposedly on his vending machines, but a little closer to the women's lockers, and some photos of.
Now he justifies this as things have went missing or vandalism or something. He justifies it, but the problem is it records Tina changing,
and he feels his behavior is okay.
The problem is there's printed out pictures that gets taken from his desk. Is that right? And starts to get circulated around the barn. And he still thinks this is no big deal. And Dutch finds these pictures.
Is Billings a predator?
I think if he is, he's a clueless one. I really, because the way they play it is, he's like, I had cameras up for protection and for a purpose. And it's not until Dutch sort of explains things to him, he goes, "Oh shit!" The penny drops.
I'm wondering, does what Billings does here, does that come out of the role that he is in? He's got this fear and insecurity as acting captain. Perhaps he's acting out as a child would against the challenges to his authority, which in this case is Kavanaugh.
Possibly.
Spurred on by that.
Though Dutch sees these photographs, he collects them up, he goes to Billings, but Dutch, being the smart man he is, knows that this is a way to help Tina and could almost be a blessing in disguise, because at this point, Tina is very close to getting canned, right? But as Dutch explains to Billings, this could be a PR nightmare. You fire a girl, she could go to the press with these pictures I was spied on in a police station.
Yeah.
You know,
pretty serious.
Serious stuff.
It makes me wonder, on what is that Dutch's decision to make? Shouldn't it be Tina's? On the other hand, Tina probably doesn't have that power to, make the same sort of wealth out of this illegal activity.
I think, if you remember, Dutch goes straight to her when he finds the photos and says, look, as far as I know, I've gathered all these up. And I think he does explain to her, look, you can put in, obviously Tina's not happy about it. And Dutch says, look, you're justified to put in complaints, but there's maybe another way to play this. Because Dutch does generally feel that she's been judged too harshly. So they basically Dutch and Billings come up with a deal that Tina gets another chance because of these pictures. I can't remember, does Dutch actually tell her about the deal he's making with Billings? Or does Dutch just say, look, let me take care of this?
No, I think he just assumes responsibility for looking after the situation.
Yeah, I think that could be right. So Tina gets the strikes taken off her and given another chance. But this won't be the end of that story, as we'll probably discuss later.
So we've got, meanwhile, Dutch is handling Claudette's sickness. He's figuring out what is going on.
Yep.
And serial killer Cleavon Gardner develops an obsession with Claudette.
Mm-hmm.
And when Billings' incompetence crosses the line, Claudette is promoted to captain. So what do we make of Claudette's arc in this season and the last clean cop?
I really enjoyed it. You really felt for it because you know what, I can't remember. Did they say what her condition was? I can't remember.
It's lupus, and I did a bit of reading up on lupus. So you get it's an environment and genetic and causes affecting the immune system, skin, joints, kidneys, and other organs. There's arthritis, inflammation, tiredness, sensitivity to light. No known cure. There's also another feature of it, I found this particularly interesting, is a butterfly-shaped rash, which is interesting with our callback to this, we had the season 2 villain who would tattoo his victims with a butterfly. And Claudette was quite involved in that. So there's a bit of retcon and story.
I think, Dutch is getting very concerned about her health, but Dutch actually goes behind her back and talks to, is it Billings, about his concerns for her? Because I know they have an argument. Dutch is looking after her best interest, but does he try and get her benched to death duty or something? Is there...
I think if I recall rightly, something actually happens where she is sort of, something with her health is rumbled by her superior, and she blames Dutch.
That's right, but
he actually
Dutch hadn't. He didn't. That's right. And this sort of all comes to a head when Claudette collapses down the stairs. Is that right? Going up to interrogation.
Yeah, this is post to Cleavon Gardner escapade. I think she's just broken him. Cleavon Gardner, played by Ray Campbell, who's this wonderful, steely-eyed, cocky, religious serial killer. He's playing his own game. And he's confident, he thinks he's above reproach. And he's locking heads with Dutch. And Dutch can't break him. Dutch has met his match, but he thinks Claudette has an in. So this is like a battle of wills.
You're bleeding.
Let's get some ice.
I'm fine.
Come with me.
No. Fatima hated you. Her own brother, a killer.
She loved me.
And you loved her? Bullshit. You killed her over and over. All those girls, Texas here and God knows where else. They were all Fatima to you. You needed her, but you hated her. And they killed them until you finally got up the courage to kill her.
No.
And now with that hair we found on that woman last night, we got you, you son of a bitch. I got you for her. And the jury, if I got one, will put all the others on you too, including your sister.
Didn't.
We have the evidence this time.
I could never.
You killed Fatima. And the hair proves you killed the woman last night.
She was nothing. Those others were nothing. Fatima was my sister.
So the others, you killed them. Pauline Whaler last night. Mary Simpson. Elena Gregory.
Dutch loves Claudette. She's allowed into his no trust bubble. They've both learned an awful lot from each other, and Claudette is able to take down Cleavon Gardner with her own perspective in addition to the stuff Dutch has given her. So yeah, that's the long answer. The fumble down.
Oh yeah, but Claudette, the actress, she really shines in this season.
Yeah,
she really does. She does very well. She's a very strong woman who won't let her ailment get in the way of her job. She will fight through this to get this case sorted. I mean, I think you see in the final interrogation, I think she's interrogating, and then her nose starts bleeding.
Yeah.
And she just carries on. It was a good scene.
I don't quite know how to describe what CCH Pounder does on the screen, but my God, it is phenomenal.
It is. She's got a great presence. I mean, even her work nowadays on NCIS New Orleans, she plays the coroner, and it's quite a routine sort of role, but she's great too. She plays like a kind of mother figure on that show to a degree as well. She's
Normally
phenomenal.
not my thing, but I might give that a try.
Well, it's got Scott Bakula and it's got a good cast. I think it's finished now after 7 seasons, but yeah, it's worth a go. But one of my favorite things in this season is Claudette getting the captain's job.
Yes, she absolutely. I quoted earlier from her opinion.
Yeah,
that scene where she just steamrolled through him, through Kavanaugh, and I think there's maybe a scene after that where she steamrolls through Kavanaugh to his face.
She absolutely does, to the point where Kavanaugh's like, "Damn, I'm getting out of here."
It's great. We've seen her hesitancy towards the job in the past, which is basically based on she'd rather somebody else do it. But
well, that's part of it. They asked her, and she doesn't really want to do it. And the reason she doesn't want to do it, she's not dumb. She knows it's political, and in the end, she says, "I will do this, but I do it my way. If you want someone just to go through the motions, I'm not your person.
I'm not your yes ma'am jellyfish."
Yes, exactly. She gets the job. This is what I was talking about, because the Tina thing comes up again. She looks at Tina's record and she goes, how's she still on the job?
Yes, she busts Dutch's chops over this when he says what's going on. Dutch doesn't get an easy ride.
No, he won't get an easy ride out of her. Because Claudette knows how good he is. She won't let him slip. And she points out, well, look, the pictures shouldn't have happened. That's crazy. But at the same token, looking at the reports from Julian, she's a liability. But what can she do now? Billings has made this decision and she's stuck with it.
It's the same with Vic, the what's it saying, the barn door closing after the horse is bolted.
Yeah. It really is.
With it. other people messed up before she could get there.
Yeah, she she can't really do anything, because if she went back on the decision over Tina would take the barn to.
Oh yeah.
So I think, so she just has to try and make the best of it.
So let's round off season 5 with the OK Corral, the big one. So Kavanaugh has moved into the barn. There's a lot to unpack here. He's frozen the strike team's assets and arrests Lem. Vic plans to get his friend out of the country. Amid the confusion and anxiety sown by Aceveda and Kavanaugh, Shane decides it's safer to throw a live grenade in Lem's car. Whoa, the stakes are just.
Can I just back up there a wee bit? There's an important scene that happens that makes Kavanaugh go off the deep end and arrest Len again, and that's the fact that it's basically it's Vic basically shags Kavanaugh's ex-wife or separated wife
by the wonderful Gina Torres.
Yes, and and she's got mental health issues. So basically, when Kavanaugh shows up, she tells Kavanaugh Vic was great. Basically, that sets him off the deep end, and then he goes right out. He arrests them. He freezes their assets, and now we've got a problem where Lem is going to do the right. Is going to do the right thing, and he's going to take the fall at first.
But the problem is like he's thrown gasoline on the fire because he's up every time.
You're under arrest for possession of heroin with intent to distribute.
Today? Wait, you're gonna arrest me today?
Give me your badge and your gun.
You're kidding me.
Give me your badge and your gun. No. Hey, get off. Hey, get your hands off him. You touch me, you're gonna go to jail cell next door. Hey, Curtis! Don't be stupid, Curtis! You give me your badge and your gun. Captain Billings, you take his badge and you take his gun now. Now.
It's okay.
Officers, arrest that man. You arrest him or you're gonna lose your jobs. Let's go.
Kavanaugh in the barn. I mean, he's got everybody up in his office. He's got Danny talking about her affair with Vic, and that brings out her fears. And this is Lem's whole thing. It's, look, let me just handle it. Let me do the responsible thing. I don't mind. I'll fall on my sword. And this, I think he has gotten this from Vic. What he fails to understand is that it doesn't work like that, Lem. You sacrifice yourself. It doesn't stop there. He just doesn't get that.
He doesn't, but I think he starts to. Obviously, you've got Kavanaugh in his ear again, trying to say, look, you're taking the fall for these guys. Are you serious? And it ends up that to the point where obviously he doesn't show up for his court hearing. I think Vic had made the decision at this point that he wasn't going to, that it's better for him to go on the run and get the Mexico, I can't remember, but get out of Dodge. So Vic and the team are waiting at the court, but they know fine rightly he's not turning up. So after about an hour of waiting, they go out to find him. The problem is they're all tailed, so they all have to lose their tails. Unfortunately for them, the first person that manages to meet up with him is Shane.
The wild card.
And I got to tell you, what comes next, absolutely, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. they start talking, and Lem's a good guy, but he has doubts at this point that he can't run, and he doesn't know what he's going to do. He loves the guys, but he honestly doesn't know what he's going to do.
We got a federale that's gonna get you there. It's beautiful, man. It's gonna be peaceful. We got money parked in an account for you. It's all set up. Mara and I even kicked in $5,000 for you. I don't want that. It's just a start. We'll keep skimming off the street, man. We'll keep you hooked up. I can't do that. It's all in play. Trust me, man, it's gonna work. It's gonna work.
There's a way for me to take the hit solo.
No, there's not,
Yeah,
man.
is.
No, there's not, man. Kavanaugh, Aceveda, the DA, there's no other deal to make. They're gonna make you give us up.
Unfortunately, Shane and his stupidity, let's call it, decides, no, you have to do right by us. And instead of letting Vic catch up with them, he decides to take matters into his own hands. He says to Len, "Look, I've brought you something to eat. You must be starving." So he gives them something from, it looks like something from like a deli or something, one of his favorites, and them saying, "Thank you, brother." And then you see Shane, he puts a grenade into the car with them, and it blows up. The car blows up.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking, to say the least.
Kenny Johnson has this sort of usual sort of wide-eyed and virtuous thing, and it's kind of fitting that even in his death, he's still innocent. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what Shane has just done.
Thanks, man. Ha! My favorite, buddy.
Shane? Shane!
And the way Goggins plays it, he's like that flood of tears again, his desperation, his
And
chaos.
you can hear him talking to the car wreck and Lem after the explosion. "You made me do this. You give me no choice." And what makes it worse is he finally meets up with the rest of the team where Lem was supposed to meet him. And he says, "Oh, I haven't found Lem. It took me ages to lose my tail." So basically the season ends with Lem's gone. Vic is enraged. And the thing we didn't cover, and there's so much to cover, the grenade was from an earlier plot point. There was these sort of criminals or gangsters were using grenades in the street, and they were confiscated. And Shane used one of those grenades, which leads Vic to think that a different person killed them out of retaliation against the strike team.
There's a few things going on in terms of what leads to the killing of Lem. So Aceveda is in there stirring the shit, which is
Aceveda in this is playing both sides.
Well,
he knows there's a war going on.
All the characters in the whole series, he's the most impervious to the havoc that Kavanaugh is causing.
Is he though?
I think so. He's the one that is able to
because Kavanaugh does try and recruit,
protect himself from it.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's doing. He's always Aceveda is out to protect himself, and both wants help. Vic wants his help to take down Kavanaugh, and Kavanaugh wants Aceveda's help.
Yeah,
and Aceveda's playing both sides.
Definitely, yeah.
To see what side's to see who he thinks is going to come out on top.
He's gotten, I think, after the rape storyline, Aceveda gets a lot sleazier.
He does.
It's kind of a point of no return for him.
Mm-hmm. He's a typical politician out for himself, knows and tries to work out who's going to win this war between Vic and Internal Affairs or Kavanaugh. So he plays both sides. He talks to both sides as if I'm on your side. And for the viewer, it's not that clear until the end who he sides with. And in the end, he sides with Vic. But it could have easily went the other way. You just didn't know.
There's a lot going on in terms of what Aceveda has done to mess with the judgment of Shane and the rest of the strike team. You know, they think that Lem is going to betray them.
Yeah.
And with Shane, I think his misjudgment over Lem's guilt is probably a projection. It's on. I wonder if Shane himself would have snitched to keep Mara and Jackson safe. I think it certainly occurs to him that
not even that. You know, would Shane have snitched to protect himself? Because he acts like Vic's his brother and all that. But I just wonder if the chips were down and he was in Lem's position, even putting the family aside, would he have done it to save his own ass? And part of me thinks he would have. He maybe not begrudgingly, maybe, but I think in the end, I think he would protect himself.
Lem would never be so open with Shane if he did plan to betray him. So that's something else against Shane. Shane's misreading is based on thinking that all his sins have been forgiven over Angie and Antoine Mitchell, and he's holding on to Lem's sins and burning the money train cash.
And you have to remember that, you know, Len's last dialogue, Len is shit scared and has a lot of doubts and thinks it might be best just for him to turn himself in.
But he is not scared at all of the strike team because he trusts.
Because they're family, they're brothers, they'll support him. And that freaks. And, you know, you could see the look, again, great acting by Shane. Again, you know, the look on his face, he knows, fuck, he could actually, he's a liability I have to protect. I do believe that he really thinks he was protecting the team by doing what he done to Len. And it will haunt him. I've no doubt it will haunt him. But I think in his mind, Vic wasn't decisive enough and he's decided to come in and do this. I think in his mind, he's done the right thing.
There's some other nice stuff in that final scene. So, so the framing, the Vic versus Kavanaugh of things is, you can see that coming a mile off. And some great camera work when Vic and the boys are marching out of that sort of pit. You also get Tina, Paula Garces, who starts breaking down in tears. And she's only had like a couple of scenes with Lem, but she says something like, you know, I knew him, and you can tell that despite that tenuous connection, you know, she's gravely affected by this.
I mean, let's face it, out of all that strike team, I would believe there is people on the floor of the farm that would talk to Lem. You know, he's that sort of nice guy. The rest of the strike team probably keep themselves more closed off. But Lem probably would be friends with people. And not only that, she's at the scene and you see this burnt out car with this burnt out corpse in it. You know, even if you only met the guy a couple of times, that would affect you. I mean, that's horrifying, you know.
There was an awful lot of talk in the writer's room about whether to let Kenny Johnson go, because Kenny Johnson is very much like Lem in his presence. He's a very optimistic, cheerleading sort of figure. And they kind of, once they sort of decided it, they knew it made sense that there was no going back. But
I'm sure they were. I'm sure it was emotional to let him go.
Yeah, and they did sort of hold it off to the end. I think to make sure that they had earned the death.
Because let's face it, if that had happened at the first half of the season or even in the middle, I think you needed to end the season on that for the viewer to deal with it.
Yeah.
And also, it's a great ending. And Kenny Johnson, you know, after he left that show, he's now on SWAT, playing a very similar character.
Right.
Only they're not corrupt in any shape or form, you know. But he's playing a nice guy that cares about the community. He has dyslexia, or he did growing up, and you see him tutor a young girl who's really struggling in school, and he even helps pay to get her into his school. You know, he's just the nice guy. You know, very Kenny Johnson, very much Lem in a lot of ways.
It's a bit scary, the powers of the writer. I mean, this is a group that's been together for over 60, 70 episodes, 5 years of television. And, you know, from actors to makeup people to people behind the camera, you know, this is one of those shows where, you know, there is family happening, and to keep the show going, to kick one of your finest family members out the door, to take the mock on it.
But I think I think it was the right decision.
Yeah,
because you know I think something tragic had to happen to that strike force to help continue the series.
I think because Forrest Whitaker is set up as such this powerful Kavanaugh character, I think you have to follow through on that threat that he presents.
Because after all, you know, this, and we'll talk about this probably in the last couple of seasons, the impact this has on Vic is monumental, to say the least. And in that way, the series in some ways changes going forward. And I think it was something the show needed because, you know, it was every season, you know, there was a threat to the strike team and they just narrowly escape and come out the other end. So this really has consequences.
We're gonna find out who did this. And we're gonna kill him.
I can't underestimate or explain how this shakes things up. It really does.
The old strike team is gone.
Yeah. After I watched this episode, I actually just was sitting on the couch and I must have just sat there for about 15, 20 minutes just processing what I watched. Because I didn't think they would kill off one of that team. You know, now, you know, in hindsight, if you were going to kill off one of the team members, it would be either them or what do you call the other sort of in the background character? Yeah, you know, in hindsight, yeah, that would be either him or them. You know, obviously Vic and Shane are just two big characters at this point, but just great storytelling that has an impact on you. And when you consider them, you know, he was on the background for most of the first couple of seasons, and you know, he's not always front and center, but when he dies, you probably feel it more than you probably feel it for anyone, just because of the character he is. And that says a lot about the actor. Absolutely fantastic.
Okay. That was well over 35 minutes.
Sorry, dude. It's just so... Oh, there's just so much. And I think that's a testament also to the impact that show had. It's an emotional roller coaster, to say the least.
I used to describe this sort of thing as concentrate. You know, you used to get orange concentrate and then you'd fill it with water. Many people still do.
Yeah.
But it's like that. It's so much in it.
And also, you know, again, talking to my friend that got me into the Shield, he says, he did warn me there's so much happens in the show that the replay value of the show is quite great, because even though you remember the main plot points, especially like them dying and what have you, he said there's so much stuff when you watch it a second or even third time you pick up on. When the big things happen in the Shield, that draws your attention and you almost forget about some of the little plot points that get them there along the way.
Well, one of the things that when I was preparing my notes I wanted to try and do was to try and evoke specific scenes, because it's so difficult when you're getting through plot and story, and you know, to sort of bring up specific scenes. So much gets, you know, there was that character Amoria.
Yes.
We didn't mention her at all. She's really quite an important character through not just through seasons 4 and 5. We didn't. Karen Little was back in season 5.
Oh yes. Wow.
You know what happened? I just forgot. At one point, like, I'm always work focused. At one point, I just not forgot that I was doing a podcast, but like I didn't care. I was just happy to
discuss it. You know, it's when you're a fan of something, that's quite dangerous because you just love discussing the ins and outs and what's going through your head. And I mean, I think hopefully what will come out of this podcast is hopefully our love for it, you know, and hopefully maybe one or two people will check it out.
Much love.
Oh, this is fresh packed. It's juicy fruit.
So that was seasons 4 and seasons 5 of The Shield, featuring Glenn Close and Forrest Whitaker. And next time, Ian and I will be here for you as we talk through seasons 6 and 7. Ian, thanks very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. I can't wait to talk about 6 and 7. It's going to be an explosive finale.
Big stuff is coming. So this is kind of like a gateway for my Patreon, where I do comics, books, and poems, and it's patreon.com, Andy Luke. Or you can find me on Twitter at Andrew Luke, or on Facebook. And Ian, you're on Facebook as well?
Yep, I'm on Facebook, Ian Lawther. I'm part of the USS Caroline Star Trek fan group. You can find us on Facebook just by typing in USS Caroline. The page is open to everybody, so why not join the page and join the crack if you're a Star Trek fan?
I'll get a link to that in the podcast description.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, folks, and talk to you within a couple of weeks. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody. Andy, next time I'm on your podcast, I want a makeup person to make me look good. We see that cheap ass Johnny and Chats Matt won't get me one.
Oh, they're 2 penny guys.